In my last video, we covered the best ship in the game, Tier 6 Premium British Light Cruiser Tiger 59. But you might be the kind of player who doesn't enjoy playing awe-inspiringly powerful ships because you feel like you've got some sort of unfair advantage over the enemy team with the power of vessels such as the Tiger 59. And if you're one of those types of players who wants something that feels a little bit more fair to the red team, then perhaps this is the ship for you. It's also on sale as part of the sort of St. Patrick's Day event they've got going on. This is the Tier 6 Premium British Battleship Duke of York, which is a sister ship to the Tech Tree Tier 6 British Battleship King George V. Both of them are the same class, and in many respects, both the Duke of York and King George are essentially the same. There's one major difference that sets the Duke of York apart, but other than that, it's very much like the King George, and in my opinion, the King George is a pretty decent tech tree battleship. Although I suppose you could say King George's specialty is farming damage with excellent HE parameters. The Duke of York shares those excellent HE parameters with the King George, but the thing that sets it apart is that it's got much, much better AP parameters, and that's sort of the calling card of the ship. In fact, if you look at the Overview tab for Duke of York, you'll see the benefits listed are superior HE pen, that's the same as the King George, but also sticky shot, reduced ricochet chances. King George has conventional AP pen angles on its main battery guns. Duke of York has massively improved ones, although both of them have relatively modest guns for the tier. However, small guns at a tier like this, relatively small guns for a battleship, usually they end up being very lethal to cruisers. Now, we didn't exactly sink the Plymouth there with that first salvo, but that's 2 Citadels and 28,000 damage. And, of course, we have the short fuses on these AP shells, which means they're much less likely to overpen cruisers. Not that they would be overpenning Plymouth, its Citadel is scientifically engineered to catch and arm shells. Also, if you're in a smoke screen in a Plymouth or any other cruiser, be sure not to be broadside to enemy ships outside of the smoke screen because, well, you can see the shell tracers, you can kind of get an idea where they are, and you can blind fire ships to death like that. There's our first kill of the game, 39,000 damage right off the bat against Plymouth, and that gives you an idea of the Duke of York's AP power. But as I said, the main draw on these AP shells are the improved ricochet angles. Now, a conventional battleship like the King George, it would have a 45-degree minimum ricochet angle and a 60-degree guaranteed ricochet angle. The Duke of York, it has a 60-degree minimum ricochet angle and a 67.5-degree guaranteed ricochet angle. So you can pen a lot of armor at even steep angles. Even on something like the Xarkun, we should be able to pen his armor when he's not fully broadside. Now, he's a little bit far away, of course, and AP shells do lose pen at distance. These are also 356mm guns. A lot of battleships at this tier have 380s, and some of them even have 16-inch or 403mm guns. So these are relatively small for the tier. They're not going to be overmatching too much. In fact, 356mm guns can overmatch 24mm of armor. And the most common plating you're going to see at Tier 6, at least when it comes to battleships, is, I believe, 26mm of armor. The Duke of York itself is coated in 26. If you look at the armor viewer, the entire ship, aside from the belt armor at the waterline, is green, 26, and it can be overmatched by a lot of ships you're going to encounter. Very common thing at Tier 6. A lot of the large gun battleships can simply overmatch each other. So Duke of York gets overmatched in pretty much all of its armor scheme by everything, but really can't overmatch anything in return unless there's a very lightly armored cruiser. I suppose it can overmatch the armor schemes on some of those. But the one thing it does have going for it, even though it's relatively lightly armored, I would say, is the same gimmick that the King George has. Namely, a relatively unhittable Citadel because the Citadel is completely buried underwater. There was a time when Wargaming changed the Citadel configuration of the King George to bring it above water and make it more easily accessible, but then they promptly reversed that decision and put it right back underneath the water. So both the King George and the Duke of York are incredibly difficult to Citadel. That doesn't mean that they aren't able to be damaged. AP penetrations that go through the 26mm plating, overmatch it, or just regularly pen it at a favorable angle, they're going to do a lot of chunk damage with the AP. But of course, you do have heals. Now, this being a British battleship, you probably would think super heal. Not the case here. We've got a conventional heal that restores 383 HP per second for a duration of 28 seconds. For comparison's sake, the Nelson has a super heal, and that thing restores 1,254 HP per second for 20 seconds. So, as you can see, conventional heal on the Duke of York. But with our commander build being John Fisher and having access to the Master Mechanic skill, we've got 5 of them. So between that and the fact that the Citadel is underwater, so it's unlikely that we'll take critical and unhealable damage, I'd say the ship is fairly survivable. And to increase its survivability, you'll see there that the Sonar consumable just ran out and is now on cooldown. It's another unique gimmick for the Duke of York that isn't shared by the King George. I believe the King George has a choice between the secondary enhancement consumable, the spotter plane, and the fighter plane. But in that same slot, Duke of York can choose between a sonar with a 3-kilometer torpedo acquisition range and a 4.2-kilometer ship acquisition range. The sonar lasts for 94 seconds, and you can either take that or you can take the enhanced secondary consumable. I have no idea why you would ever choose the enhanced secondary targeting consumable over sonar. It would make absolutely no sense on a ship like this, whose secondaries are really not that usable. But of course, the sonar is good for, avoiding torpedoes and potentially even pushing DD smokescreens in some cases. Unless do you think that because this ship has good AP penetration parameters, it somehow misses out on the trademark HE potency of the British battleships? It does not. The maximum HE shell damage is 6,100, which is the exact same as the sister ship King George. And it's got a 41% fire chance with 89 millimeters of pen on the HE. Again, same as the King George, and I think that ship is very good at farming a lot of HE damage. Duke of York is no exception. You have a choice between really good AP parameters and really good HE. You kind of can't go wrong. A couple British ships are like that, really. This would be one of them. And also, we should talk about, I suppose, the other downsides to the ship. I think the armor scheme, in spite of the fact that the Citadel is underwater, is a little bit of a downside. I mean, the thing can take a lot of chunk damage, but the other downside, I would say, is the maneuverability characteristics, namely just the rudder shift. The speed on the ship is nothing terrible. It's got a maximum speed of 28 knots, which is reasonably fast for Tier 6. It's also got a turning circle of 790 meters, which is fine. The thing that kind of feels bad is the 17.5 second rudder shift time, which maybe that's not terribly long in comparison to other battleships at the tier, but the thing feels sluggish in the water to me when you're trying to turn it, and also the firing angles to get all of the guns on target are not ideal. You have to give an awful lot of broadside to do it, and getting all guns on target, the angle is not good whether you're firing forward or in a kiting position. So you really do have to turn the ship a lot in order to utilize the full firepower and also keep yourself relatively angled so that you can mitigate damage from enemy battleship AP. That can be kind of a pain to do with a 17.5 second rudder shift time. Although maybe you could take a different approach from my build and substitute the, propulsion mod for rudder mod. Speaking of which, as we approach the Lexington to farm the rest of our damage for this game, I'll show you the commander build real quick. We've got the Aiming Systems Mod 1, Propulsion Mod, Concealment, and then we've got John Fisher with Kondo and Kedrov as the two inspirations. The reason I have Kedrov is because the turret traverse feels pretty slow without him. With him, we've got main battery turret traverse of 36.4. Without him in the same Fisher build, I think the turret traverse is 45 seconds. So, obviously, I didn't want to do that. Oh, I should also mention, too, that the reload time on these main battery guns is also pretty decent. It's 28.5 seconds base, but if you copy this commander build and use Fisher, Fisher has this skill called Dance with Death that reduces main battery traverse speed and main battery reload time by a certain percentage for the percentage of HP you lose. So as you lose more HP, your turret traverse and reload both become faster. And then he's also got this skill called Reformer that helps with the accuracy on the guns, which is pretty good. Also, this last sequence of the battle, perhaps not the most entertaining thing, but I do love sinking CVs. And the Lexington, if you're unfamiliar with the armor scheme on it, it's really coated in 19 millimeters of armor practically everywhere, which the Duke of York can actually overmatch with its AP. However, it does have a 25 millimeter plate on the belt, sort of midway up the ship there. And I can't be sure, but I believe some of the shells that we just shot there actually hit that belt armor. And because they can't overmatch 25, normally they would probably ricochet. But because our pen angles are so improved, all of the shells just pen the Lexington and really hurt it. So that's maybe a little bit of another example of how good the AP pen angles on the King or the Duke of York are. If you do get this ship, AP is probably your primary shell over HE like it would be on the King George V. And I think it's a pretty good battleship to have. It's on sale for something like 8,750 doubloons. To be honest with you, I don't know if I would really buy it. This is not a ship I play all that often, but the AP parameters are nice. And if it sounds appealing to you, you might want to get it while it's on sale. I don't know. Hope this video helped you make a decision in that endeavor, but that's it for today. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.